Hello, and welcome to the Sacred Heart Shaman podcast, where we talk about spiritual healing, shamanic wisdom, and the challenges of walking the healer's path. My name is Nadia Harinkyu, and today's episode number 52. Today's episode is a story time, and it's called When Pipes Burst and Magic Flows. Good morning, my podcast friends. I am so happy to be with you here today. I am in such a bizarre situation, and I'm actually recording this podcast in a public library outside of Tampa because I cannot find the free time to record a podcast at home. And this is part of my path at the moment, is complete and utter chaos to the point where I don't have time to sit down for 30 minutes in the quiet of my dining room. As many of you may or may not know, I am currently on full-time mom status, shuttling my kiddo to Tampa, which is an hour and a half away from where I live, 5 days a week for 7 hours a day. And although this is not part of the story time, I'm going to talk about it for a minute because I think it's a really important piece of the spiritual path, and that is surrender. Surrender, surrender, and surrender some more. So ever since June, I have been in this situation of shuttling my kiddo an extensive amount and an extensive distance so that he can get the help that he needs. And in this process, I've pretty much had to shelve a lot of my work, a lot of my clients, my classes, my community work, even a lot of my personal work, because I'm in a constant state of uprooting everything. Everything. You can only sit at Starbucks for so long before you feel like you're going to shoot yourself. You can only sit in a park so long in Florida before you feel like you're dying. You can only go to the beach so many times before you're like, God, I'm so freaking bored. And so this process has been incredible in seeing everything about my limitations and limitations that I impose. So my motto right now is recover, Nadia. Take care of yourself, relax, and make the best of a situation, because surrender truly is to put aside what you like and dislike about a situation and to surrender to what in front of you at the moment. And so I'm in a really weird position at the moment, and I am doing my best to surrender to it. But I woke up this morning with so many ideas and inspirations in my head, including some new guided meditations that I just recorded and this podcast, and feeling a fresh flow of energy for creation, which means something is about to change, and that's very exciting. So today's podcast is actually like a more fun podcast because why not? And it is also my 52nd episode, which means I have successfully done this podcast for over a year. Now, I don't put one out every week because I just can't. And I've actually had to delete a couple due to content. But 52 is a big deal. So hooray for a year of podcasting. When I first started one of my businesses years ago, my big goal was to be on a podcast. And I was on a number of podcasts, none of which were very big podcasts. But I was mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast. And that was pretty exciting, a real testament to my manifestation skills. But over the years of doing my work, I realized that I needed to start a podcast. And that was probably one of the more scary things I've ever done in my career. So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. And as part of this starting a podcast, I'm actually going to have a giveaway this week. So I am not, a huge business person, though I am trying to hire one who is at the moment. But I do know the importance of reviews and sharing. So this giveaway is going to be an ask of my listeners, an ask for you to leave me a review. My podcasts are in all the places that podcasts are listed. Spotify and Apple specifically, I would love a review. Leave me a 5-star review. Leave some comments. Send me a screenshot of that review. Email it to me, nadia@sacredheartshaman.com. And I'm going to put everybody's name in a basket and pull names for a free one-on-one deep dive or oracle reading. If you're already a client of mine or we've already done a super fun deep dive, I'll make it extra special and maybe we'll do a plant diet or a custom journey recorded for you or done live or a parts work immersion, whatever it is that you want. So leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot, send it to me. Please give me the immense pleasure of putting everybody's name in some kind of hat so that I can dramatically pick one out and offer a free session to celebrate my 1 year of podcasting. Listen, guys, I have hundreds of followers. I know that you guys listen. I know that you guys download the podcast, and I only have like 4 reviews. So do me that favor. That would be amazing. Okay, on to the podcast today. Okay, so this is actually a really fun one. Now, as you can imagine in my work, I have some crazy freaking stories. Like, crazy stories of synchronicity, of manifestation, of aliens, of ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, demons. You can call it whatever you want. I have stories for days. But one of my, I think, more favorite stories I'm going to talk about today. So, total story time. And it'd be really cool if some of my listeners were actually here for this event because it was crazy, and it still gives me goosebumps when I think about it or when I talk about it. So I'm going to start as much in the beginning as I can. There was one weekend where I was hosting ceremony. So I have many different kinds of workshops and ceremonies. In this case, it was like a pretty deep dive ceremony experience for a group of 10 to 15 people, plus volunteers, plus staff. And I was hosting this immersive ceremony experience on a beautiful property in Vancouver, Washington. It's a vineyard. They rent the house out for events. Like it's gorgeous property. I loved it there. And I had been working on that property for years, so I had a lot of rapport with the spirits of that land. And I also knew that my time was coming to a close with this particular property. A property will always tell me when we're almost done working together because there's some special things that we do with portals and grids, and the property will tell me when we're finished. So this property is wonderful. I have a very full group, and the weekend so far starts out fine. And there's one little quirk, and it's the refrigerator is not dispensing water to a specific person. Okay? No one else is having a problem. This one guy, every time he goes to the refrigerator, the water will not come out when he puts his glass up to it. But someone else will go over there and it'll work just fine. Now, immediately my spidey senses are going off because I know that there is something else afoot here. Cool. We go through the first day of activities. Everything's fine. And then late Friday night, the water stops working. Now, we are in the midst of an incoming ice storm. We're going to get a snowstorm. And in Vancouver, Washington, this doesn't happen very often. And there's no plows out here, guys. So it's an event. And we're kind of out in the country. So it's a little ominous, right? We can feel the weather coming. It's pretty cold outside. And the water stops working. It's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, maybe 9. I'm not sure. It's pretty late. Some people are already in bed. And I'm downstairs with my staff, and I'm like, this isn't great. We check the house, water's not working. We have to call the emergency service, like county people. The guy comes out from the county, and he's like, weirdest thing. I couldn't sleep tonight. I was like pacing around the house, and I don't know what was going on. And it's a good thing because then when I got the call, I was already awake and I was ready to go and I could come out here. I'm like, awesome. We're so glad. He comes out. We don't own the house, right? We're renting it. And so we don't know where the water shutoff valve is near the street. And he's like, don't worry, I'll find it. The guy's out there for a long time, and he cannot find the valve shutoff that connects at the street level. The length of the driveway, I'd say, is probably like a quarter mile, maybe half a mile. I'm not sure. And I have a couple people out there with him. I have like one of my employees and then a couple participants, and they're out there trying to help the guy find the water shutoff. Eventually, I think he had to take out a metal detector I don't know. He had to like remove a bunch of brush in order to find the valve shut off because it was like brush was piled on top of it. He opens up the manhole and the water's turned off. And he's like, this is really weird. He has to take out this special tool to turn the water back on. He tells me about it. I'm like, all right, that's bizarre. Here we go. He turns it back on and he leaves. At this point, I think it's like midnight or something. It's something ridiculous. And we're sitting around in the house talking about the situation. We're like, I don't know how I feel about this. Okay. A little while later, we go back and check the water. It's turned on. It's working fine until it's not. And now the water is at a trickle. And we're like, oh, shit. This is not good. This is really bad. We have to call the guy back. He comes back to check the water. He runs a bunch of tests, and he's like, there's a burst pipe somewhere. Oh, shit. He has to turn the water off. We have a house full of 15 to 18 people at this point, and we have to turn the water off. It is the night before the main attraction of the ceremony weekend, the main event, if you will. Nobody can use the bathroom. Nobody can take a shower. What do we do? There's a couple of us hanging out in the kitchen, freaking out a little bit about, like, you know, here I am, the host of this shindig, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, people paid money to be here. They're here for this experience. I'm going to pull some cards. Like, what do we do? Now, I go to pull a tarot card, and 5 minutes before I pull this card, somebody cracks a joke about apes, monkeys. God, I wish I wrote it down because it was hilarious. And the card that I pull has 5 monkeys on it, and there's 5 of us sitting there in this room. And the 5 monkeys are on top of a mountain looking down at a river of water. And I'm like, shit, this is pretty clear. We need to get away from this house. There's a problem. And then we just have the joke that was just made about the monkeys or the apes. And we can see the synchronicities, and we're like, okay, consensus. Yep, this is not great. It's time to go. So anyway, there's nothing we can do at that moment. Like, people are already sleeping, like shit's going down. Toilets aren't flushing. All right, guys, we're going to address this in the morning. And I have to make the executive decision of, do I want to call it or do we want to relocate? And one of my other facilitators says, I've got space. Like, let's all go to my house, right? It's a big group. She's got a massive living room, many couches, mattresses, you name it. Like, she's got the space, but it's going to be tight. And so we wake up the next morning, and I have to tell the group of people what's going on. And I'm talking to this facilitator, the one who's like offering her living room for our experience. And I was like, what are we being warned about? Like, what are they trying to tell us? What's going to go wrong? And she's like, what if it's happening for you? This was the first time that I had ever heard this concept, which sounds crazy because I've been on the spiritual path for a while. I've been doing all the work for a while. I've had some really great therapists and some great coaches. Maybe I have heard it and it never landed. But for some reason, in this moment, her saying, Nadia, like, what if this is happening to help you, completely turned my world upside down. And that's like the story of my life ever since that moment. Anyway, we sit at the giant kitchen table the next morning, and I have to tell these people, like, okay, here's our situation. Here are our options. Meanwhile, it is snowing outside, and we know that we are on a limited schedule. We either stay put or we get out. And at this point, there's no water. So staying put in this big house with so many people is a terrible idea. So I sit down, being the good leader as I am, and I say, all right, like, this is what's up. I want everybody's input because this is not just my decision. You guys chose to be here. You chose to do this work with me. Now, can we agree to surrender as a group? And if so, what does that look like? What do you guys think? And I let everybody put in a vote. Do you want to go home and call it? Do you feel like this is the end point for you? Or do you want to carry on? We're going to switch locations. The setting's going to be very different, but we're going to do it and it's going to be great. And everybody was on board. I was so freaking proud of these people. They totally surrendered with me. All of it was like out of our control, but everybody went with it. And I love that. And so we all voted on it, except for the one guy where the water wouldn't flow for him in the refrigerator. He was like, I'm feeling too freaked out by this. I feel like it's an omen. I think it's time for me to go home. Now, as a facilitator of group containers, I can always tell you when something is off, when the group is not cohesive, when there's tension between certain people, when this person's triggering this person. Even if they're not aware of it for themselves, I can see it in the energy. I can see it in the dynamics. And sometimes in group containers, there is one or two people who, I don't want to say they make it unsafe, because it's not like they do it on purpose. It's almost like for some reason their presence does not perfectly jive with the container. And there's always a reason for this. Always, always, always. There's always a lesson to be learned, annoyingly. And for some reason, when this person decided to drop off, the dynamic of the entire container changed. Now, another interesting thing is, as the facilitator, there were two people that I felt a lot of friction with, a lot of discontent. And I fully expected those two people to be the ones to drop off from the container, but they weren't. They were the ones that decided to come with us. Now, at the new location is also dogs. And this was the first time I was able to have dogs in my ceremony space. And let me tell you, that was a joy. I'm going to revisit the dog conversation in a second. But those two people that I thought were going to drop off completely changed in the presence of a dog. So this move required the group to go through a surrender point. We're in this situation. It sucks. It's not what you paid for. It's not what you wanted, but it's where we're at. Can you go with the flow? Get it? Water. Go with the flow. Yeah, but really though, can you go with the flow? And by saying yes, all of those people had the most beautiful experience in the following ceremony, because of their ability to surrender, because of their ability to say yes. It was like giving permission for those final structures or constructs or armor to be taken off. I surrender. Take me. Now, this ceremony was by far the most beautiful one I'd ever been a part of. Everybody's heart was opening. There was so much love. There was so much beauty. I got to experience my first past life experience in real time with one of my clients. He's also like one of my good friends. But it was like a whole heart blossoming experience, and everybody else as well. I'd never had a ceremony where everyone had heart work done, where everyone's central theme was love. It was very cool. So to talk about the dogs, that was also a few weeks before I left for Peru in 2024. Now, at that time, I was teetering on getting a golden retriever. He'd come to me in spirit already. He'd already told me what he wanted his name to be. People were seeing golden retrievers in my journeys and stuff like that. But for this ceremony, I watched two people completely melt in the presence of a dog, and all of their armor dissolved instantly, which allowed me to come in and do my job properly, right? If you have too much masking or armor or walls, I can't work with you. Like, I can't reach the parts of you that need to be seen and tended to. And so that really solidified the dog conversation for me as well. And I ended up putting in an application to get my golden retriever a week or two later. So there was a lot of magic that surrounded this ceremony, and a lot of like really peculiar things, like who shut off the water valve? Because it wasn't a person. That manhole required special tools to get to and couldn't be found and was covered in brush. Why was it shut off? Like before a pipe actually burst. I mean, just really interesting. Why didn't it work for that one guy who tried to get it out of the refrigerator? So, water spirit was heavily with us that weekend, and I have a couple other instances that I was going to share around the spirit of water because it seems to be an ally that comes up a lot for me, especially in the last year. So, this was right before this experience I just shared with you. It was right before I went to Peru, and that happened early 2024. Now, in 2024, I had massive heart expansion activations, whatever you want to call it, just like huge experiences with love for myself and the world. I met a future partner person and had my heart activated by him and parts of him activated by me. It was a really intense experience. Now, the next month that I held an event, I went back to that same house to hold another event for, a week, a half a week. And we had more experiences with water. The toilets started overflowing the day that I got there. And what had happened was allegedly like the whole system was backing up and wherever they store sewage in the lawn, I don't know what it's called, it needed to be pumped. And we had to get the owners in there to pump it. Like water was literally backing up all over the place. And it was almost like a nod from the universe of we're clearing out the pipes. Like we need to get this pumped out. We need to get this cleared out. That ceremony moved the biggest like energetic clog I've ever felt in the collective. It was really, really crazy. And I believe it was after that one that the house was like, yeah, please don't come back. Like we're done. We're done working here together. It was really funny. So a lot of water in that house and around my ceremonies. And then the person I was just mentioning, the future partner person who caused heart activation in me and vice versa. After he started working with one of my practitioners that I recommend people to, he came home to having water pipes burst in his house. So surrender and flow, guys. Now, this is an interesting kind of thing to talk about too for a second, the water. It's not just about water, right? Like, water as an element is such a complicated thing to discuss because I believe that water itself may or may not have a spirit. I actually don't know. I know that there are beings who are like rulers over certain bodies of water or certain rivers. But the idea that water itself is a spirit, I feel very on the fence about. But I also believe in elements kind of acting as aids and helpers, right? So if I'm doing this massive spiritual work, this massive energetic work, and water can ease that process, it kind of acts as my right hand or like an extender for me. So it's working with me on my behalf, but it doesn't really have its own sentience. It's more of like an extension of me. And after I returned from Peru, I really experienced that as me as water, as any person as water. I don't think it's exclusive to me, but as this concept that this is also you and you are also it, and there is no separation. So I don't know, it's a very interesting thing. If you've ever had that experience of like merging with an element and understanding its purpose and where it's present in the world and how it works and how abundant it is, it's a very cool thing. Now, hilariously, this was not my last encounter with water. There was also a place that I was renting to hold community events in Vancouver that also had a burst water pipe at some point while I was working with their space. So my takeaway from this is this was when the spirit started merging with my physical reality. I have had experiences with things tangibly appearing in 3D, but this one was one of those undeniable things, right? The things that like really stick with you. There was no explanation for the water being turned off or the premonition of water pipes bursting. It just sort of happened. Somebody was looking out for us, and it was really cool. So just a reminder that magic is possible and that it looks 1,000 different ways, and sometimes it's a little wet or even a little gross. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. Please do not forget about the giveaway. I would love to give some of my very precious free time to a lucky individual right now. So post that review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot, send me an email, let me do the hat pulling thing, and I will reach out to the winner in the next 2 weeks. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to know more about me and my work, you can find me at www.sacredheartshaman.com.